Khala Bedat. You're listening to the Women Power Podcast, a subsidiary platform to the Women Power Summit, the largest event in MENA, with the aim of empowering women and helping them achieve their absolute highest potential. Each week on the Women Power Podcast, you will hear honest, vulnerable, authentic, real conversations from inspiring women. These women will share their experiences and stories into what it takes to build a successful business and career. The podcast will share insight and inspiration and hopefully inspire action and lead change. Side note, even though we are all at home, we wanted to bring you valuable content. So this episode of the podcast is brought to you over Zoom. Please bear with the sound quality. Thank you. Rana Salam is the founder and creative director of Rana Salam Studio based in Beirut. Rana Salam is one of the most established and celebrated graphic designers and artists from the Middle East. Her unique knowledge of Arab culture and its popular art stems from years of traveling and documenting. She takes her visual cues from billboards and signs of consumerism and translates them into visually captivating solutions for her clients, delivering a contemporary reinterpretation that extends the global relevance of her designs across everything from brand identity, space design, packaging to products. In addition, Rana launched a successful online store, ranasalamshop.com, selling home products and a collection of accessories, art, prints, and one-of-a-kind objects with stories to tell and sell from the Middle East. Her clients include Harvey Nichols, Villa Moda, Liberty of London, Boutique One, the Victoria and Albert Museum, Paul Smith, Kokomaya, Pachi, Itsu, and Neda Depps. Have you had any mentors? Were you able to work with anyone that you were like, I aspire to be like you?
Basically, the people that supported me or always kind of I felt looked after me is Rose Isa, the art collector, and my aunt Tarfa Salam, who designed the Albergo Hotel. She was very business savvy, so I would get a lot of tips from her of how to run things. And one more lady in London who ran a company called Karma Design, Mona Murad. I used to always look up to her as this Arab Syrian woman who was so good at business. And she had kept delaying having her child because she had business first. But she was very good at business. She was not creative, but she was just very savvy and knew how to. You know, she would always tell me, Rana, when I touch this, it turns into gold. And I would like, wow.
Let's talk about your collection. Okay, let me tell you, when I was walking with my friend, I was telling her, like, how do you know what to collect?
I've done it since the age of 8. I used to always have this huge billboard at home it was so famous with my friends. They would always come to my room. All the stuff that I would buy and pin to the board in terms of the packaging and the graphics. So it started there. And I would just collect and collect. Actually, COVID taught me how unnecessary is this hoarding habit, buying, consuming. When I'm collecting, for example, Syrian underwear, if I didn't collect the Syrian underwear, I wouldn't have made the book. So that's the power of collecting. If I didn't collect my series of censored posters, you know, in the Middle East, they censor posters with felt pens. So I have now a collection. If I didn't collect my Egyptian cinema posters, I wouldn't have a collection. And I'm now considered somebody who specializes in this. And hence, when you become a specialist, it leads to somebody who's capturing culture. Although we were saying it's a disease, but it's actually also very, very valuable. When you go to the museums, people have collections. So my collections are the wow and wonderful. It's the stuff that people really disregard, think they're rubbish. And I'm rescuing all of this, saying, no, wait, look, it's not rubbish. It's very valuable because it's the makeup of your culture. The cinema posters that people used to throw, the lingerie that people would not even notice. I mean, come on, that's like major, the lingerie book.
So I know the book. I've seen the book. I've seen people buy the book. But for our listeners, do you want to just give them a brief about it and people's reaction to it?
The people's reaction is what I'd love to talk about. The book was, for me, so obvious to make because it's stuff that I would see in the souk that nobody would actually even notice. But I realized I have the gift of the eye. So when I was taking and extracting those lingerie from the souk and putting it in a book, it's completely different behavior. And it became so provocative, which I love, by the way, to do, is provoke people and their thinking. And the book was like, was on fire. And just to capture that culture in this object, which is, I didn't realize it had so much power. So it's people were just after it. It was fantastic.
And you know what's crazy? Like, I've seen stores where you have some provocative lingerie at the front and people walk right past it. But when you take it and you photograph it and you zoom in, then it's like, what is this? And, you know, it's a whole book. And this idea of Syrian as well, like it's from the Arab world. There's a clash of emotions when you see it. Did you get any negative backlash, feedback from customers or from anybody, or did you feel like it was overall very well received?
Oh my God, no. I had lots of people that were so disgusted and horrified. Like, what the hell is that? This is awful. This is horrible. What? Even the Syrians would see it like, what? This is our culture? No. And I remember very well, we had an order for 25 books from Queen Rani in Jordan, heard about the book. So we got a phone call saying, we'd like to order 25 copies. We get so excited in the office. We ship it to Jordan. They had not seen the book. They just had heard of it. And then suddenly they open it and they're like, it's a little bit difficult, the book. We're going to have to return the copies. So they returned all 25 copies. And that was, of course, a classic story. Yeah, it was too much to handle.
How did you deal with the negative feedback?
Yeah, of course, I was provoking people, and I love the reaction. I love it. I love seeing people's psyche, how they how conservative they are, and how I've pushed them to see and like peel their eyes, like look.
You have a signature. Like now people look at your work and they know this is Rana Salam's work. Is that something that you're proud of? Like, do you sometimes look at it and you're like, I'm so over this design, or you're like, this is me?
Of course, a signature style is very important for a designer. But yes, you do get trapped in it. It's a great way of capitalizing on a signature style. After many years, it backfired on me because people thought that that's the only thing I do is Middle Eastern pop art. I would say graphic design is a language. It's a visual language. So I can speak many languages. I can speak Middle East, I can speak Italian, I can speak Japanese. I can do a design for a Japanese restaurant because I know how to use the skills of graphic design. And I've created a language of pop art for the Middle East. This did not exist. There was the language of pop art in America that was created in the 50s. There is a visual language for Italian design. So the Middle East did not have a visual language. It did not have a vocabulary. So that's what I created. And it became a signature. You know, I was the first one to do it, as you know.
Absolutely. You're the first person to glamorize and to modernize things that we maybe felt were boring or dull. So for sure, you have brought something so new. Like, I think everybody at some point was touched by your work. And I just wonder if that's still the kind of work you're creating now, or do you feel like there's a new chapter to your work?
It's a good question. It's of course I'm very attracted to that style and my images. It's like it's inside of me. It's like I would like you to say that I moved on because it's like rejecting myself. I'm very attracted to that aesthetics, and street culture will always be in my blood. I try and, if anything, refine it a bit more and catch up with the trends. You know, graphic design is also very much like fashion. It cannot remain. You just give it a facelift and make it more trendy. But the echo is still there, and we'll come to that topic about how now I'm using it in the design of the first Noura restaurant in Paris, which they've created they wanted me to create the first Noura street food, which is equivalent of a McDonald's. So it's going on a large scale. And how do you use that visual language on something like a fast food chain? Unlike Comptoir Libanais, which also became very successful because of my signature. But Comptoir is less of a Burger King, McDonald's style, if you know what I mean. But Noura in Paris are the first ones to lead on that.
So your work was so revolutionary, in my experience, that a whole wave of copycats have taken that as their artwork or their signature. There has been direct copies. There have been people, if someone's familiar with your work, you can see that direct copying of work. How does that make you feel? Does it upset you? Or are you like flattered? How do you feel when you see other designers, other agencies taking that Rana Salam signature and applying it to their work?
I have to admit, at the beginning, it did upset me because there were some people that were very, very close to me as friends, designers, that were literally lifting my work because obviously it was so delicious. So they would just come and help themselves and use it in their work, claiming it that it's theirs. And I found a trick actually of how to reclaim it. And I was like doing this to them. So what I would do is, how would I do it? For example, the people who would come and we're talking like 10 years ago, people who would come and now if you tell me Kulthum, I do not want to see an Kulthum anymore. But the people who did come and lift my work, sometimes they would actually do it better than me. And I would just take it back and copy them. As in, like, for example, taking my images and maybe applying a slither of gold foil to it. And I think, that gold foil is very nice. So using the gold foil is not copying because it's not a concept. So, and then using it back in my work enhanced it and made it actually look very nice. So that's how I say, fine, you want to use my work? I look at the thing, you know what? That's very nice. I take it back and then I throw it back into the market, making sure that people know that it's mine again. Yeah, I mean, copying is a part of the game in the design world, from the Chanels to everybody. The worst part of copying is when they actually come to me asking me if I'm copying them. That's when it hurts.
So when other people come to you to say you're copying that person?
Yes, that's the painful part, because some people were better than me in terms of marketing themselves, and especially the ones who were producing products. Products are far more visible to people than branding.
I mean, I guess this is a challenge that not many people face. A lot of people don't have signature designs that reach clients and countries outside of MENA. And your work is so clever, but there's a lot of simplicity in it. I want to talk about your Instagram series and where did this idea come from, showcasing the wonderful world of Rana Salam?
Started actually when I opened my design studio 3-4 years ago in Beirut. And I remember the first thing I put on my wall, I set up this beautiful design studio. It was like a depot that I turned it into this quote unquote museum. So the first words that went on the wall were the wow and wonderful world of Rana Salam. And that came from www.ranasalam.com. So the www of the World Wide Web, I translated it into that. So, and I wanted to become kind of like a brand for the IGTV. So I thought it's a great strapline and it's very catchy. So I'm really into it now. And I've been, since the operation and the collapse of my design studio, I just before that, I did an ad for OLX. You know, it's like the equivalent of eBay in Dubizzle in Dubai. And I was in front of the camera. It was a wonderful ad campaign. And I thought, wow, I would love to do more of that. And I had no idea. I was like waiting for the person from the TV station to approach me. Then I thought, during my personal quarantine after the operation, I discovered YouTube and IGTV, and I would spend a lot of hours watching. I thought, you know what? Hey, these are designs for you to create your own channel. Like, ta-da! And I thought, I'm not going to wait for anybody. I'm not waiting for anybody to create this TV channel for me. I'm going to start doing it myself. So that's how the IGTV started. And it's been month and month and month of thinking how I'm going to do it. And there are 3 series now that I'm planning. But I also, at the end, I need to know how do you make money out of it. And I'm so happy that you are seeing it. Many people are seeing it, hoping somebody will see it and think, they will snap me. I want her.
I love the IGTV series, and statistically, I mean, I'm jumping into my agency, wearing my agency hat now, but like we're spending 7 to 8 hours a day online, and that's where everybody is, and that's what everybody's doing, especially during COVID. So I love the series. It's so beautifully done. It's so real, and I think they're too short. I'm just like, why? Keep going. I have a question. So when you collect these products, do you have an archiving system, or do you just display everything where you see it?
In the office, everything was on display. Everything was on show. Just before closing the office, I thought, is there an app that can document everything? And there was something called Sortly. It's like this app, you take pictures of inventory of every single product. And bizarrely, Ruth Bradley from Dubai said to me, you've got to inventorize your whole life. And I started with like the first 20 products, then I died. I was like, I can't do that. It's impossible.
This podcast is brought to you by the Women Power Summit. The Women Power Summit is an annual event that hosts more than 2,000 guests to listen, learn, and network with more than 100 plus speakers and industry leaders. The summit creates space for growth, learning, discussion, and collaboration, with the means of creating a space where women can support each other, ask questions, be curious, and be inspired. I want to talk about client work. Let's segue into like working with clients. And so we talked about Harvey Nichols being your first client. What are some of the mistakes you've made with clients in the past?
Screaming at them. Big mistake.
What would you be screaming to them about?
I'm too emotional when it comes to business. I would feel sometimes they just didn't value me, or they sometimes want to buy me for nothing. I'm always having to fight for my designs. Sometimes the design world can be really nasty, to be honest. Clients who don't pay the rest of the invoice, some clients who in the middle of the project, they take your work and they go and give it to someone to copy it all because they don't want to pay. Actually, also being a woman in business, dealing with men is sometimes not fun.
Can you be more specific? Do you feel like people don't respect you because you're a woman, or they don't value you because you're a woman, or they feel they can get away with it? Like you should be so lucky.
Sometimes the dynamics sometimes it's weird. It's chauvinistic in the Middle East. I still find it chauvinistic. Sorry, and I have to really be honest. It's when I came to Lebanon, it's the first time I used to say I need to hire a male manager. He has to be a guy.
Again, I'm kind of bewildered because everything you've mentioned is what I go through and what we go through as an agency, but I don't know why I thought the great Rana Salam, and that's how I call you, by the way, in my head. But like, I'm surprised to see that. No, but I thought this wouldn't happen to you, but we have the same challenges dealing with difficult clients, and I get this sometimes a lot because I think I look quite young as well. So I get like, inti صغيرة, like you're so young, like just take what we give you, this is good experience for you. And it's like, and when you ask for the value that you deserve, for some reason you rub them the wrong way. It's like they want to give you that they feel you deserve, not what you feel you deserve, which is really weird. And then there's also ego, right? So if you say no or no, thank you, they get upset and they take it personally. I always say, like, rejecting people is an art. If you're a woman, you have to do it in a way that you win them over, rather than make them feel like you reject them because they take it personally. That's how I feel about it. It's just really challenging.
I can only say that what proves your point and my point is a friend of mine he's a transsexual, from male to female. And it was the first time he says to me, Rana, I swear to you, I never knew it was like that. He's an artist. What he charges now is half. And he's now having to deal with the female world. And he said to me, it's another planet. They treat him so differently as a woman.
But you know, when you complain about it, other men would say, actually, you get a lot of things that we don't get because you're a woman. People are nicer to you and they're more gentle with you and they're rougher with us. So, like, I always get, so I feel your friend and I feel like that's how it is for me as well. But then you get all this negative feedback from men saying, you guys get it easier. You should be so lucky, you know? It's very interesting. So, what is the best parts of your job? Is it the client work? Is it the Rana Salam shop? Is it you creating your own products? Is it the collecting? What gives you energy in your work?
Actually, the reason why I created the products is to run away from the services, because services you have to be like a therapist when you're dealing with services. Dealing with clients, you have to be an amazing therapist, dealing with different types of people, insecurities, trust. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to create my own line of products, have this vision a la Kate Spade, and I'll never have to deal with one client again in my life. But then that comes also with another ball game, which is basic production and distribution and sales and blah, blah, blah. So ما بنخلص.
So Rena's next chapter is an influencer. Is that what it is? Is that where you're going next?
I was always an influencer without knowing, but to be on camera, yes, if you want to package me that way, I guess, yes. Somebody who is now able to access 14,000 people from a phone.
If that's where your mind space is at, I'm so excited because to me, just IGTV, Instagram is just another way to tell your story and to share your work and to inspire others, which is what you've always have been doing anyways. Who was your favorite client or your favorite project that you've worked on?
One of my favorite projects is obviously doing Comptoir Libanais, because that was done so spontaneously and without knowing the knock-on effect it had on my career and my culture. And after that, the highlight of my career is doing the exhibition in Dubai, which was commissioned by Art Dubai for Design Week, called Brilliant Beirut. And that's going to be one of the series on my IGTV. And it was all about the history of design in Lebanon from the 1950s to 2015, 7 decades of design. And nobody had ever done that. I was asked to curate and design the exhibition. And wow, was I in for a surprise of the wealth of information that was out there that nobody had ever gathered. And I was the chosen one.
So let's talk about mommyhood. We talked about your kids a bit earlier in the conversation, but how has being a mom changed you?
I think that my career took a shift when I had my daughter, who's now 18. That's when I learned how to take myself seriously and to understand how I need to price and charge for things. And I had to just get on with it.
But actually, Rana, you do look really good now. Like you have so much color, you've lost so much weight, you're just always smiling and radiant. And I used to follow you and you used to go running and I just felt you were reclaiming your life when you used to go running. I felt it brought you so much happiness.
The running came after I actually divorced and I wanted something that would give me my self-esteem back. And exercise was a key. Wow, it was life transforming. It rejuvenated me. It got me back in touch with my body. It empowered me. It made me, it was a cure for my depression. And I lost the weight with it. Not necessarily on the scale, but just my shape changed a lot. And I felt more sexual. I felt more desired. My work was getting better. I was stronger.
That's such an accurate word. I felt you were just gaining strength and through every run. Were you, if you don't mind me asking, were you depressed because of the divorce or was it just through other things that were happening at the same time?
No, if anything, I was very happy when I was divorced. It was before that, just very sad in being in London, sadly married, and just feeling that I was carrying the whole world on my shoulders. I became very masculine, running a business, running the house, the kids. there was this, bizarrely, there was this man inside of me. I became very, London also makes you very, takes away your femininity. It's a bulldozer city. You're on the underground. Yalla, you've got to do this. There's no help. You can't ask for any, there's nobody comes to you and say, يا حلوة, حبيبة قلبي, بدك, you want some help? It's just like, it's too much. You come to the Middle East and you're like a flower. You bloom. And it took me many years to become a woman here, to embrace the femininity, melting into the female. Here, it's very different, the dynamics. Men are men. It's true. We are desired. It's beautiful. انه ايه اوكي لطشني so what شو بدك احلى من هيك واحد على الطريق بتاعي يا حلوة بلندن nobody looks at you. It's like stuff like that. I don't know. You're running on the corniche and you're encountering these beautiful men that are like, testosterone. In London, there's no dynamics between the men and the women. It's not sexual. Here, it's, I don't know, there's a spark.
I love that you found your feminine and embraced your feminine energy when you came to Lebanon. I think that's so powerful.
Yeah, for sure. Although in the business, I was still behaving in a masculine way. When I was running the business, I had to have the man inside of me to deal with the clients, and I hated that. So I would even do therapy to try and understand how to deal with this man inside of me that is very aggressive and shouts, and I'm still having to deal with it, how to deal with my screaming. I don't like it. It's kind of ugly.
Do you feel like it's not you? Like, this is not me? So it makes you unhappy when you become that person?
Yeah, it feels like it's my father. My father was very patriarchal, was very aggressive. And having grown up with my father, my mother died when I was 12. So I had a male figure that I looked up to, and he was an architect. So he was a bully. He was a bit of a bulldozer. So, and I would see how he would shout, and I do it to my kids, and they hate it. And bizarrely, we end up mimicking our parents. As much as we love them or hated what they did to us, we end up replicating.
Sometimes it's so unconscious. Like, I always used to say, I won't take that specific trait, but then I'm modeling all their behavior, both of my parents. And sometimes I'm aware when it's too late, when it's already out of my mouth. And I remember reading somewhere that when you don't live your authentic self, so when you're not being yourself, the biggest person you are cheating and hurting is yourself. And when you talk about there's a man inside of me, that's not who I am, but it's there, and I don't like it when I become that person. It just feels like, for some reason, like you're not being true to who you really are, if that makes any sense. Because that's not who you are. But then you do behave that way, so then you're upset because it feels like it's not in alignment with, with who you are.
In therapy, what the therapist said to me at that point, I said, please take the man out of me. I hate him. She said, you planted him inside you, so use him. Zarati. I was like, ew, Zarato, my God, how do I get this? She's just said, you planted him. Use him when it's necessary.
This podcast is brought to you by the Women Power Summit. The Women Power Summit is an annual event that hosts more than 2,000 guests to listen, learn, and network with more than 100 plus speakers and industry leaders. The summit creates space for growth, learning, discussion, and collaboration, with the means of creating a space where women can support each other, ask questions, be curious, and be inspired. So you said something which I thought was very interesting. You talked about your father like a bulldozer. But I feel that in a way that describes you in a positive way, because you bulldoze through life. You're very fast and quick.
Excellent.
And you embrace color and you embrace graphics. And when I met you in London, you're still, even when I see you on Instagram, I don't feel much has changed. Like I'm surprised about your split disc, because I just felt like you haven't stopped. You're going, moving. So if we can talk about energy management, how do you maintain this appetite for life and the speed.
If I was to think about it, in the moment after my operation that I had to really stand still, I realized my work was my therapy in terms of running away from a lot of deep emotional hurt. It was my medicine. This constantly, exactly like you said it, Wafa, this hunger for life, yalla, 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 was my morphine, my cocaine. Absolutely. Because there was so much pain inside, which comes from the loss of my mother. I really realized that this is just too much, because I didn't want to deal with this deep pain of having lost my mother, pain of loneliness, pain of feeling unloved, looking for love all the time. You know, it's subconscious without realizing. When you lose your mother, you'll always be looking for a replacement. And that's why I fell into a marriage that I entered codependency, low self-esteem. In haram, sometimes I feel I should apologize for my ex-husband, having to deal with somebody like me that was so needy. So the work was wanting people to love me. Now we're going to go a bit into therapy. Okay, so basically I didn't have the mother, and my mother became the public. So the way to get people's attention and to get their attention, it was to produce great work. And I would do my work because that was the way to avoid my pain. Yalla, 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 khalas. And it was so exciting. It's like really like being on coke. Now you're making me think about myself, but really, and this indulgence in this fantasy world of graphics and colors and shapes. It's fantastic. It's so delicious and mesmerizing. And I realized, to somebody who's not a designer, this world is amazing. A banker would not even have a slither of my imagination. So I bring that to them, and it's Alice in Wonderland. It's mesmerizing. But for me, it's normal. I was 12, and that pain will never go. As much as you do therapy for the rest of your life, it will not go. So it was a very painful upbringing, very painful childhood. I think people don't know this about me.
Though, you would never even imagine it when you see, and you would never know seeing from this world you've created, which is a world of color and graphics and type and fun and laughter and red lipstick and Vespas and running on the corniche. You would never think behind that, or part of the story was this extremely tragic experience. You've definitely like chosen a path of positivity and happiness. So I'm sure there's like a lot of work to be done. And I think we're all trying to work on ourselves, even now more than ever during COVID and during this time where we have to sit with ourselves and face everything. And I'm a big believer in investing in your mind and talking to experts like you would buy a handbag or buy a dress. So it's, but I guess to the outside person, like what you've done is you've created Wonderland, which I think is just, yeah. I'd love to I'd love to think that the narrative is you managed to take something sad and tragic or traumatic and turned it into this world that we're all a part of and we all get to see and visualize. So I thank you for that. And I thank you for sharing that story as well. I know it's not easy to talk about losing loved ones.
No, it's very difficult. But like I said, it will not, the pain will always be there, and it takes you to places that you do mistakes, and and then now, luckily in this day and age, a lot of help is out there in terms of this thing they keep on telling you, the mantras, love yourself and blah blah blah. Okay, فهمنا, بس no, not easy. I still don't understand what it means.
So do you practice affirmations? Do you like look at yourself in the mirror and like, Rana, I love you and I love your nose and your face and your throat and your cheeks and your hair? Do you like work on yourself from that side, your self-image and your self-esteem as well?
I was, I think, from one of the first generations that started in this whole holistic understanding. When I was in London, I had big issues about my weight, whereas now it's being plus size is the thing. So, of course, we're talking 80s. I was overweight. I hated my body. You're meant to hate it because you're told to be thin. So I started reading a lot of books from Susan Orbach, Naomi Wolf, all about the female, and learning a lot that it's all media and it's out there to just fuck you up. And then I had stumbled upon a book called Creative Visualization by Shakti Gawan, very, very famous book. But us as designers or artists, we are naturally visualizing. And when a client comes to see me, I say to him, I see it. Khalas, I know exactly what you want. I'm like a fortune teller. You see the future. We are, as designers, projecting the future. So I do a lot of affirmations. I do mood boards. Mood boards are part of my work anyway, creating the future. And believe it or not, yes, I have manifested everything. Believe it or not, I have manifested everything. I think it, I make it happen. Is that crazy? Yeah. So manifestation is true. I mean, even when I'm designing, I think it, on paper, I do the mood board and I make it happen.
So when you have those lows or when you burn out, because it seems like you're going, and then you slow down, what gets you back up again? Do you take time off to rest? Do you sleep a lot? Do you travel? What gives you the energy to go back and go back into bulldozing mode?
It's like when you're really down, the next thing is up. So as much as you say that I'm always positive when you see me visually, I can be very, very, very negative sometimes, and it just kills me. I can go into deep depression, as in aching for love is a big thing, aching to be understood, aching to be somebody to get me, to understand me, and just having effortlessly. And the way I would go up again is my way of exercising, doing my morning walks, hanging out with good friends, eating what you shouldn't eat, being a bit naughty, going on my Vespa is part of my medicine, having a very nice piece of cake. These are the things that make me happy. I never conform to dieting and stuff like that. Yeah.
Is there something that you swear by? So before we wrap up, I just want to talk about, is there a specific ritual that you do and you're like, Wafa, this is the one thing I do every day. That's my anchor. This grounds me. And I need to integrate it into my day. If it's reading or journaling or walking or whatever it is there something that you do that if you do it, it kind of sets the tone for the rest of your day?
I'm a bit recent in the last, I would say 2-3 years. It's definitely my exercise in the morning, the walks. Now, after my operation, I walk, I don't exercise, but that's so key. And I neglected that for 8 years. I didn't do anything. I thought, oh, it's just a marketing thing. People want you to exercise. It's just a business. No. Walking is as important as eating, as going to the bathroom, as brushing your teeth. It's the same thing. So that's very, very important. And of course, having my Illy coffee. That's my ritual every morning. Coffee is, I dream about it before I sleep.
So what is next for Rana Salam in 2020?
It's definitely going to be more the IGTVs. It's me more doing series and talking about my vision, my episodes about design, the value of design, getting people inspired, getting people to follow my world. I have so much to offer and to give and to show people. It's, there's a lot to talk about.
So thank you so much, Rana. This has been amazing. I just love how real this was and how honest you were, and I appreciate it. And I think there'll be a lot of women listening to this who will be like, me too. They'll feel it. And just hearing how positive you are and how excited you are about your next chapter will motivate people to keep creating and thinking and putting themselves out there. So I really thank you. This has been a wonderful interview. That's it for this week. Thank you for listening to an episode of the Women Power Podcast. And thank you for downloading and streaming our podcast every week. If you love what you've heard, tag us on Instagram and follow the Women Power Podcast and Women Power Summit account for more information on our next episode. Please leave a rating review wherever you get your podcast. It really helps other women discover the show. That's it from me. See you next week.